Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for hanging out tonight on a day when uh, a lot of people are in. Whoops. I guess I need my mic ready to start talking. Uh, Good to see everybody tonight. Thank y'all for hanging out. Hey, listen, I know it's a day. It's that kind of day, right? Some challenging things to talk about. Feelings are very raw. We're kind of in a place, and I get that. I want to say this now. I obviously every human being is multifaceted. There's many things about us. Many of you all know I'm spiritually over church, the Sanctuary in St. Louis, and so I serve as an overseer in the Church of Everlasting Kingdom. And oftentimes, there are aspects of who I am in this place that's not necessarily consistent with who I am in this place because there are things you want to say, but I'm a pastor, I can't say that, things like that. Well, I want to say this as everything, as everything that I am in every capacity that I serve. I want to say this to you. Hear this. It is okay to feel. Okay. I One of the things that is frustrating me so much about this election, and particularly how we have responded to it, is that I see so many Christians basically delegitimizing your feelings and then throwing out all of these platitudes. Well, God is still on the throne. Well, God is in control. Well, it's all a part of God's plan. No, babe, it's really not. Now, we might say it's part of God's plan in the sense of, well, God's not surprised for a God who sits outside of time. He's not surprised by what happened the way that we are. But what I don't want to ever do is imply that God planned it, that God wrote it down. This is what's going to happen. And in order for my purposes to be fulfilled, I'm going to make this happen. No, let me really help you. We made this happen. We, as in the American citizenry, right? Those who did vote, those who didn't vote, we made this happen. And I think that it's important that we acknowledge that, because if we don't acknowledge that, then we'll fail to do what we need to do in order to correct it, in order to make sure that, God willing, right, that it doesn't happen again. And so we have to be able to accept responsibility. I'm going to say that one more time. We have to be able to accept responsibility for how life unfolds. The good things, the bad things, we need to be able to own that. And we can't own it, especially the bad stuff, when we just toss it on God. Well, God works in mysterious ways. We'll understand it better by and by. No, how about people just didn't do what they could have done? People didn't do what they should have done. How about people didn't vote how they should have voted, or in the numbers they should have voted, or for the person we will say, quote unquote, should have voted for, right? Can we take ownership of that? And I just, I'm not going to put myself in the position of God, but boy, if I were, I'd be like, that wasn't me. That was all y'all playing, right? But we are so quick at that. And listen, I understand something. Listen, please hear me. I understand that it is our way of coping. It helps us to cope by being able to say, well, God, I'm just trusting God for it. I know that it helps you to be able to feel better about it, to think that, it's all a part of God's supernatural divine plan and somehow he's going to make it work out. But I need us to cope in ways that are actually right, in ways that are actually biblical, in ways that actually make sense and that don't prevent us from being able to learn from this and move forward in a productive way. Um, we don't have to make stuff up. Practically or even spiritually, we don't have to make stuff up in order to deal, right? To get spiritual, because I am a teacher, right? To get spiritual for a minute, Jesus says the truth, even the truth you don't want to accept, even the truth that doesn't feel good, the truth shall make you free. And so I just want to challenge you all with that idea that, hey, we need some truth. Somebody needs to inject some truth into this, and for us to be able to accept responsibility for this very unfortunate course of events that we are now dealing with. Okay. So I really want us to stop with the Christianese platitudes of, it's all God and put it all. Let's just stop with that. Let's stop delegitimizing what people are feeling. Let's just stop with that. One thing the church is really bad at is letting people feel. We see this when people die. It's going to be all right. And all of a sudden, I don't know if it's going to be all right. I don't know that. I'd love to be able to tell you that. Well, isn't it your job as a pastor to try to encourage me? Yeah, but I'm not going to just make stuff up to do it. Right? I don't know how this is going to play out. I'm married to a man. I have an adopted son. I don't know how this is going to play out. This is not just, it don't matter who's in office. The heck it doesn't. Right? And so, no, I don't know what the implications of this are for my family, for my household. I'm hopeful. I'm believing that somehow, some way, this is going to be all right. But I want us to stop hiding behind religiosity in order to make that point. It frustrates me because I think about the Christians who were slaves, Black Christians, right, who were slaves. I think God was on the throne then. I think about the Christians who were suffering during Jim Crow. Well, God was on the throne then. I think about Christian women who are being physically and sexually abused. Well, God's on the throne then. Well, what did somebody say today? There's a hedge of protection around us, so we're going to be all right. Oh, so was there a hedge of protection around all those Christian women who have been sexually abused by their husbands? Was there a hedge of protection around them? Was there a hedge of protection around those Christians who were hit with water cannons when they were trying to vote, or hit with water cannons when they were trying to protest? Was there a hedge of protection around them? I want us to stop making stuff up. Being a Christian does not prevent you from going through. Being a Christian does not prevent you from having horrible things happen to you. Okay? We got to stop with this because it does not position us to be able to cope well and effectively, because then when things don't improve, then when things get worse, now we're blaming God. Now God, why have you forsaken me? God, why have you forgotten about me? Don't you see me crying? Don't you see me fasting? Don't you see me praying? I see you fasting, crying, and praying, but what I don't see you doing is trying to change the situation. What I don't see you doing is getting off your knees, come out of that prayer closet, and getting out in them streets with a picket sign or going into that voting booth, right? We cannot be so caught up in revival in the church that we're letting the world go to hell in a handbasket because we expect heaven to do what we have been called to do. Now, in many ways, we did a lot, right? Trying to push this Harris presidency, this Harris win. At the end of the day, it didn't work. And all we can do is what we can do. Now, for those of you all who may have made a different choice, that's on you. What I'm really trying to do is to just help us to be able to process it effectively and not to start making theological claims that just don't make any sense. Okay. So I know that we have some people online who are here joining us. And so feel free to share your thoughts. Feel free to share your opinions in the chat. If you want to come on screen and share some stuff, I put a link in my feed. We're live streaming from a couple of places, but I put a link in my feed, and I'll ask Elder Damien to also put a link in his there as well to copy that, where you can come on in and we'll put you on screen and you can share what you're feeling, because I promise you, you're not the only one. And sometimes it helps to be able to just have a space to come and just share, I'm hurt, or to share, I'm scared, and to not have a pastor or a bishop or an apostle or a prophet tell you, well, baby, you need to trust God. I'm not going to say that to you today, because being afraid of situations that we created does not mean you don't trust God. It does not mean that you don't believe God is on your side. I am not going to dismiss what you are feeling today, but I want to give you a place to be able to feel it and to be able to express it and to know that you're safe in doing so. At least until January 20th, 2025. You're safe to be able to do so. After that, I don't know. We do what we can, right? And ultimately, we have to just play it by ear, take it one day at a time, do what we can between now and then to help prepare ourselves individually, our households, our extended families, our church families. What can we do to prepare ourselves for what's to come. How might I need to move around my coins? How might I need to prepare myself for the defense of my household and family? Now you just fear mongering. No, I'm not. I don't know what this is going to look like. And so there may be steps that we have to take, not in order to become combative or become violent, but in order to prevent violence being done upon. I have a responsibility to protect my family. And so maybe you do need to go buy a gun. I don't know. But what I do know is I'm going to do what I can to protect mine. Right. And so I want us to be able to make the changes that we do need to make looking forward, because we really don't know what this is going to look like in the coming months. Okay. We don't want to be fear mongers, but at the same time, we do want to be honest about the fact that we don't know, rather than just hiding behind Christianese in order to cope with what we're feeling and saying God has it all in control. Okay. Tell that to all the Black people who were lynched with Bibles in their hands by Christians who love to burn crosses, right? Can we talk about Christian nationalism and the part that it played in the consequences of this election? I'll talk about that in a minute, but before I do, I know Elder Damien wants to come on and share some things because he's been feeling some things as well. And so we want to talk about, have these real conversations about how we got here, because it's real, y'all. It's real. Come on, Elder.
Did I do that right?
You did not, but here we go.
All right.
So look at my two babies.
So good evening to everyone that's tuning in. We've got comments and things already on my page and your page. I can't look at the other one. So, but I did want to say, like, this picture right here, the three of us, honestly, is at the top of my list of being concerned about. What Overseer mentioned, we're a same-sex married couple, legally married couple. Is the legality of that going to be taken away? That is a huge thought of mine. If we just went through the whole thing of Roe v. Wade, I don't have. It's almost like I just know that at some point they're going to come after LGBT rights, and that is a huge concern of mine. So,
and before somebody say, well, they can't do that because it's already been legalized, let me tell you, they can. Justice Clarence Thomas has already made a statement that just like they revisited Roe v. Wade, they also want to revisit marriage equality. He said that, a sitting Supreme Court justice. So don't think, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I'm being honest about what we're facing. So don't think for a minute that it's not possible, because it is.
It is. So, and so in saying that, I do want to go back and also what you shared at the top of the show is that it's okay for us to feel. I have been feeling all day long. I was last night. I went to bed, maybe around midnight, slept for a couple of hours. I woke up around 3 and I couldn't go back to sleep until 5. And so just really in a place, and we had a conversation last night. Like, I hated to use the word, but at the time I really felt hopeless. Like, in the moment, I really started to feel hopeless, and I feel better today, but I avoided every opportunity. Every time I changed the channel on television, I made sure to.
Hey, Kimmy.
Want to see? I avoided the news all day long. Like, I knew what the weather was going to be like. I just looked at the app on my phone for the weather, but I avoided the news and any other commentary. The greater majority of the day, I stayed off of social media. I kind of popped back on and off because I wanted to see. I wanted to be supportive of people because I know that people were feeling some type of way. And one of the things, and I'll just say this last thing too, I really appreciate those organizations that I'm connected to that have sent out like emails and text messages, just actually being there for people, making official statements from like the ACLU, Here in Missouri, we have Promo. My organization here locally, Black Pride St. Louis, our executive director sent out a beautiful letter to our email constituents, just standing in solidarity, because there, a lot of people that are hurting and a lot of people that are scared, concerned, whatever you want to put that as. Bless you. So I appreciate those, that are making statements. And if you belong to an organization or a church even, I think it's important that you do make an official statement about what's going on. It doesn't mean that you have to choose the left or the right or anything like that, but just making a statement that wherever you lie on the map, on the scope, that you are there, and that we're all, will we all get through this? Yes. Is God still on the throne? Yes. But however, I am still human. So I it's okay that you're in your feelings about things. So most definitely so.
And it's not partisan to be correct, to stand up for what's right. It's not Christians try so hard sometimes to be middle of the road that we forget that we're actually called to seek justice. Micah, I know it's like I don't want to be like religious, uber religious. Ellis, get ready. I see you in the waiting room, so I'm gonna bring you on in a moment. Micah, is it 6:9 or 6:8? Let me double check. I should know what this is by heart because this is a very powerful passage of scripture. But Micah 6:8 says, this is the New American Standard. It says, "He has told you, oh man, oh person, what is good." He's already told you what's good. "And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God?" None of that describes the person that we just elected as president of the United States, the person that a lot of Christians voted for. None of that describes that. But they think that he's their Cyrus, he's their savior. Let me also look at Matthew. Well, that's the Old Testament. I'm a Christian. Okay, let's talk about Jesus then, because some of these Christians, let me tell you about these Christians. They don't even like Jesus anymore. They say that Jesus is too progressive, right? And so there's something wrong when they don't even care for Jesus anymore. I tell you what, we're going to have to just change it from Christianity to Americanity or something. I don't know. But Matthew 23, verse 23, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You doing all the religious stuff." He says you tithe mint and dill and cumin, doing all the religious stuff, but yet you neglected the weightier. If I was in church, I'd touch your neighbor and say, weightier provisions. You've neglected the weightier matters of the law. What are they, Reverend? Justice and mercy and faithfulness. You're so busy about trying to go to church. You're so busy about singing the choir. You're so busy about trying to preach, but you have forgotten justice and mercy and faithfulness. He said, now, yeah, you can still do the religious stuff, but don't neglect the others. Matthew 23, verse 23. And so we go into the voting booth and we vote for people who are standing for injustice, but somehow we think that God is actually pleased with what we're doing with our vote. And it's like, and we're preaching it. It's also one of the things that frustrates me is that we talk about Christians not being partisan, but yet the right, conservatives, they're all up and through these churches. They are all up and through these churches. And so why is it that only I'm gonna take him off screen. Why? Because he's getting our baby together. Ellis, are you ready to come on? Why is it that it's only the progressives, or why is it that it's only the socially conscious who have to be the ones who don't say anything political in the church? I used to struggle with this myself, and I finally rested on the fact that what if Martin Luther King wasn't political? Right? What if all of these other people and leaders in our community who have come before us weren't political and said, I'm not going to touch that because we're not a part of this world. We're in the world, but we're not of it. Yeah, but while we're in it, perhaps we should be advocating for those without a voice. While we're in it, perhaps we should be trying to improve the lives of those of our neighbor who we're supposed to love as ourselves. And if I'm not going to sit back and let myself be hurt and harmed, why should I be willing to let somebody else be hurt and harmed if I'm supposed to love them as myself? One of the reasons why this election went the way that it went is because a lot of people voted the way they voted because they thought in their mind, well, at least it's not me. Well, it can't be me. I don't mind him doing that to the Mexicans. I'm not Mexican. I don't mind him doing that to the Haitians. I'm not Haitian. I don't mind him doing that to the gays. I'm not gay. First of all, it may not be you today. It can be you tomorrow. Second of all, even if it never is you, can't you see the world beyond what knocks on your door? And can't you have compassion and empathy and a desire for the well-being of somebody else? These things that we preach about, but yet somehow we don't bring it into our lived experience. Ellis, come on, let's talk. Talk to me. How you feeling tonight?
Greetings, overseer. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Um, how am I feeling? Surprisingly, I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. Somewhat. I don't want to say scared, but anxious. Well, I have anxiety about what's to come in the future. One thing, that gave me anxiety and that fear in 2020 was, um, a unhinged, no holds barred, lawless Trump for a second term because everything's he has nothing to lose this time, and so here we are again. But surprisingly, I'm not angry. I'm not. I thought I would be if he won. Um, I'm not. I guess it's just more so disappointment and just a little bit of fear and anxiety of what's to come because I'm I don't know. Who knows what he do? He may shock me and turn into something else. But we all know that he said that the
From your
first
lips to
time.
God's ears, right?
Right? About this. That was one of the talking points of the Republicans when it was unknown about what the first Trump term would look like. One of their talking points was, we're going to now see a sober Trump. We're going to now see this Trump, he's going to be presidential. Let's just give him a chance. And we gave him a chance, and look what happened. We became more divisive. He showed us who he was the whole time. He ran 2015, 2016. We didn't believe him, and he made us a believer the 4 years that he was in office. And so I'm not too optimistic that any of that will change. So especially with JD Vance, who's a more agile and a more, you know, than Trump, who's basically going to do his bidding and that of his own, and he's more and just as a you how it was when I thought I was very angry at the Democrats and most not some media but just the news media about how I thought they pushed him out. And to be honest, as much as I would, it would be easy to say, yeah, Biden has stayed in to kind of jump on that. Maybe he would have won, but I can't say in good consciousness and truthfully that I really believe that. I don't know what would have happened if Biden had stayed in, because his approval rating was down, his cognitive ability had declined. I was just going off of what I knew the first term, that only
Right.
a white male could beat Trump. And let's just face it, that is the truth. Not that
Oh, it's
Kamala
the
and
truth.
Hillary weren't, not that Kamala and Hillary were capable. Of course, they were capable. Women have been capable since this has been going on of running this country. But
Right.
unfortunately, one thing you say, overseer, all the time that I agree with. People are I don't know how people are shocked or surprised. I'm not shocked or surprised that he won. Most, one thing that you say all the time, what do you tell us? I like how you say this. Whenever there's a political thing going on, whether it be police brutality going on or something that's going on with these political candidates, you always say, in the face of this truth, this is who America is. We like to romanticize it and say this is not who we are and things like that. But the truth, the sad and scary truth is that this country is rooted and embedded in racism, misogyny, patriarchy. It's woven into the fabric of who America is.
It is.
There's
And
no other way.
until we're able to have an honest appraisal of that fact, we're going to keep repeating the same mistakes. It's one of the reasons why I think that down in Florida and their governor, who's kind of leading the way, and they're going to probably be adopting some of this stuff nationally now. But I don't even remember what his name is. But anyway, with them trying to outlaw different books and outlaw different types of learning and teaching, they don't want history to even be taught to the kids, because they want to have this romanticized version of what of America and what America looks like. And we can't do that. We have to be able to tell the truth, the honest, cold, hard, truth about it, because only if when we face that truth, and that's one of the reasons why I was frustrated with something that Joe Biden used to always say, this is not who we are, America. Yes, the heck it is. And like, I know we always quote her, but I think it's really true that Maya Angelou said, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time, right? You don't have to wait until they prove it again. Believe them the first time. And so, yeah, I certainly think that we will do well by being more honest about the type of country that this is. And see, this demonstrates to me how systemic the problem is, because so anyway, I want to keep you on screen, but did you finish sharing what you wanted to share? Because I'm about to go into part B of what I wanted
Okay,
to
well,
share.
let me just add this.
Yeah.
Another feeling is that they're already laying blame on Biden and the Democratic Party, and I do agree with that. Not so much on Biden, only because if his cognitive decline is really going, then maybe, as far as they saying, he should have stayed in. He should have dropped out early and given her Kamala a chance to really prove herself and give her some solid footing in the race. I believe that even if he had dropped out early, she would have lost because of those points that I just said about where we are as America. Not because she's not capable, nothing like that, but I think she still would have lost. And Biden would have lost too. I'm just going to keep it real. He would have lost too. It is on the Democrats, because to me, I feel like if they had given us the time to vet another nominee, then maybe the outcome could have been different. So I do feel that, but even with that, that doesn't put a person in the White House. The people do, and the people spoke. So we do have to go back to these things that I do want to say that I'm proud of Kamala Harris. She ran a heck of a campaign in 107 days, and none of this is on her. She, her back was up to the wall, against the wall from day one. She had to deal with the pressure of trying to undermine the stench of Trump's what am I trying to say? Trump's stamp on the Republican Party, and undermine that, and say and come against that, and at the same time try to distinguish herself from Biden. And she only had 107 days.
She only had 107 days, yeah.
Right.
And so given what she had to work with, she did a really, really good job.
A tremendous job.
Absolutely.
And it's sad that not too many people even say the focus is more on Trump and not on her. What I'm saying? So to me, so she did the best. Her and Walz did the best that they could. That they still were, I believe, top tier candidates for the ticket. But we have to get to the meat and potatoes of what this is. And we can talk all day long. Oh, it was the issues that put not like that. Only if it was close. And we seen now how polls lie. The polls had us all believing that they were running neck to neck when clearly she was losing the whole time.
Honestly, when we look back at the history of these election cycles and things, the pundits have been wrong plenty of times. And it's not that they're wrong; they're sharing what they think at the time, and nobody can ever, prophesy right? How people are going to vote at the end of the day. So there really isn't any way but listen, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts. I absolutely think that this is a good opportunity for people to be able to come on and share and vent and get it out in a way, like I said earlier, that's affirming, right? That it's okay to feel what you're feeling, and to not feel like, well, I can't say this because if I say this, it doesn't sound Christian enough, or is it faith-filled enough? We can lay all of that aside and just be honest, just be open, just be real, just be raw. One of the things that Ellis brought up that I want to talk about was it's going to be important to try to dig through some of the history of this campaign and try to identify, where did it go wrong? What could we have done better? Because, obviously you want to improve upon it the next time around. Tonight is not going to be a good time to do that, right? Because you have to be able to examine stuff dispassionately. And right now is not a dispassionate time. Right now is the time to feel, not the time to analyze, because trying to analyze it through these feelings, we're not going to necessarily get to the right result. Because I've seen a lot of people online right now. Well, if the Latinos have voted this way, and well, if the black men have voted this way, and well, if the white women have voted this way, we're kind of still in our feelings. We're kind of still purging and processing. But I think that those who have made this a career, right, analyzing these types of things, will be able to do that work down the road. And hopefully the Democratic Party will be able to make adjustments accordingly. I was very disappointed, though, in some of the criticism that I saw of Kamala Harris now that she lost the election. And because it makes you think, well, was your support of her just paper thin? And now that she's lost, and it wasn't her fault that she lost, right? People are going to vote how they're going to vote. I think she ran the best campaign she could have run given the amount of time she had. So I'm not going to turn around and, piss on about the vice president. I think that her loss, given the criticisms that people levied against her, all of which could be levied against Trump and more. Well, she's not qualified. Well, I don't trust her. Well, I don't know what her positions are. Am I in Wonderland right now? Like, are you for real? Right? And then the she's not qualified part. All Trump has done is run failed businesses. She was the DA. She was she was assistant DA. She was a prosecutor. She was the DA. She was the attorney general. She was the vice president of the United States. What more do you want? Does she have to be Mary, the mother of God? Does she have to have an immaculate conception in terms of qualifications? Her loss, in my opinion, there will always be ways that we can say somebody improved because nobody's perfect, including Kamala Harris, right? But at the end of the day, I think that her loss says more about America than it does about her. It says more about our unwillingness to put women in positions of power than it says about her. I think that it says more about our unwillingness to put women of color in positions of power than it says about her. Let's remember that Barack Obama was the first black president, and that wasn't that long ago. And the fact that Trump came in office the first time around was nothing but a pushback against Obama. Had there not been a President Obama, there would not have been a President Trump. I have said that before, and I'll keep saying it. He won because whiteness pushed back, not white people. Every time I use the word whiteness, I always want to clarify, I am not talking about white people. I'm talking about the white power structure in America that is still not ready to let go of the dominance of white culture, which is why there's so much anger about illegal immigration. It's not so much that they're illegal because nobody's talking about the illegal Russians that are in the country. And there are illegal Russians in the country. Nobody's talking about illegal other Europeans in the country. And there are some who have overstayed their visas, right? We're talking about brown people because The white power structure in America does not like the demographic change that is happening in America. They don't like the fact that by 2050, I think they said, or 2060, somewhere like that, Caucasian will not be the majority race in the United States. They don't like that, and it scares them. And so they're willing to risk everything. They're willing to risk democracy itself to put a tyrant in the White House, to put a womanizer, a sexual offender in the White House, to put a why can you not get a job at McDonald's, but you can be president of the United States? How is it that you can't vote for the president, but you can be the president with the felony? It just doesn't make sense. I saw somebody post, I saw a few people post, and I think it's true. That whole question, have you committed a felony, should be removed from every job application from now on. Because it's totally meaningless at this point. And I think it's also important to acknowledge the fact that Christianity, conservative Christianity, the Republican Party has claimed to be the party of values, of Christian values. I want to say, save that. I want to say, save it, spare me. Because if it was a party of Christian values, it would not have elevated Trump to Messiah status. If it was the party of Christian values, it would not have put this man. We might be able to say the first time around we didn't know what we were getting. But after January 6th, there was no excuse for us to steal. And then the felonies that came afterwards, there was no excuse for us. We went in eyes wide open. And so nobody can claim, I just didn't know. It is not possible anymore to say, I just didn't. And that's why I was criticized for making a post that said that somebody asked a question once. They said, well, why, how are you planning to restore the broken relationships that have happened as a result of this election cycle after the election? Whoever wins, how are you planning to restore those relationships, mending them? And I said, I'm not, right? Because you can't, with eyes wide open, vote against me as a Black man, vote against me as a gay man, vote against me as a same-sex father. You can't vote against my very being and then want to be my friend or claim to be my friend. And I wanted to I clarified to the person who raised this objection, who raised this concern with me. What I did not say is that I'm not open to the prospect of relationships being mended, but I'm not going to be the one pursuing that. And I don't feel any compunctions about acknowledging that. I'm not going to be the one out here trying to change minds. No, if you want to mend fences, mend relationship, then Romel needs to know that you understand why it was strained in the first place. Romel needs to know that you recognize the danger that your vote and your political support put him in. You can't put a woman in the proximity of a sexual offender and leave them alone, knowing what you're doing, and claim to be her friend. And then it's her responsibility. The church will say, because if you have an ought against your brother, go to him, right? And then it's her responsibility to go make good with you. No. You can't purposefully tell me that what's the word? In inflation was more important than my humanity, and expect me to be okay with that. You can't tell me that the economy was more important than my humanity, and I'm supposed to be okay with that. So no, I'm not going around trying to make friends with Trumpians and MAGA. No, right? And if you voted for Trump, I'd rather just not know, right? Because it's going to rub me some kind of way if I find out, right? Now, does that mean that, you do some thinking about it and you realize, I didn't, these are people that I love, and I didn't mean to hurt them. I didn't mean to, and you come say that to me, guess what? I'm good. I just think that'd be an acknowledgement of wrong. Now, to be honest with you, I've already moved on. I'm not holding a grudge. I've already forgiven everybody who voted for Trump. I'm good. But forgiveness doesn't mean that I have to keep you in my proximity, because for my own mental wellness and my own well-being, I need to have people around me who I know are for me. Doesn't mean I haven't forgiven. And that's one of the other toxic things about the church and our theology, is that we think that that in order to forgive, I have to actually forget. No, forgetting means I'm not going to protect myself from future harm. And that's not what God is calling us to do. But let me share something about this. Just in trying to analyze and understand how we got here, it's interesting to me that Missouri is a red state. I knew Missouri was going to go for Trump. I was hoping it wouldn't, because I'm a resident of Missouri, and every time Missouri turns red, I get embarrassed all over again, right? But I knew we were going to go for Trump, and it wasn't really a surprise. What was a surprise was that 2 progressive measures, ballot measures, passed in the state of Missouri: an increase of the minimum wage and abortion rights. They passed in the red state of Missouri. And I thought, that means that a lot of Trump supporters had to have voted for these measures. And I just thought, how disconnected do you have to be from reality to vote for a measure that wouldn't even be necessary if the person you voted for the first time around had not got in office and appointed all of those conservative justices that knocked down Roe v. Wade? It wouldn't even be necessary. And now you put him back into office while still trying to preserve that right. But that right is going to mean nothing if they pass a national abortion ban. Well, Trump said he wouldn't do that. And if Trump's mouth is moving, he's lying. And you know this. So what good does it do to vote for an abortion rights, but then put the man back in office who took them away in the first place? There's this cognitive dissonance. And it proves to, in my opinion, it proves to me that this was not an issues-driven election. Because if it was issues-driven, how are you voting against the person who supports wage increases? You're supporting the one who only cares about the rich, but yet you're going to also support a ballot measure to increase the minimum wage. This is not an issues-driven election. This was an election driven by ideology, particularly right-wing, white, male-centric ideology. It doesn't mean that if you voted for Trump, you are racist or sexist, but it does mean that those were not deal breakers. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why was that not important to me? I posted a couple of days ago. I think it's very important. They're very interesting. I think it was yesterday, that scripture tells us that the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil. And when I hear people who were saying they were going to support Trump, I thought it was very interesting that so many of them actually said that they were doing it for economic reasons. And I'm like, well, first of all, the economy that he enjoyed was actually Obama's economy, not his, first of all, right? But if it's economic reasons, then you're basically saying I'm putting those monetary matters above the safety and well-being of women, of people of color, of Latinos, right? Of so many people. And I'm like, once again, the Bible is right and somebody's wrong. Because these money issues, they get us jacked up. And what makes it so bad is it's not money matters actually. It's the fable of a good economy. The Republicans lied to you. Trump was not good for the economy. He was good for rich people. Do you realize that when he passed the economic thing that he did back in the day during his first term, where people got a tax cut, the tax cut of the wealthy is permanent. The tax cut for the middle class expires. It's about to expire. Why would the wealthy tax cut be the one that's permanent? Because those are the only people he cares about. But in order to make it the measure palatable, he had to include something for the middle class too. So Republicans have been lying to us about this, and we've bought it hook, line, and sinker because it made us feel better than to have to vote for this Black Asian woman, this woman of color. That's just sad. Well, what if she's on her period and she has her button on the nuclear? Are you serious? That's where we are in the year of our Lord 2024, Christian. That's where we are. It's really, really sad. I see my husband has rejoined the chat. What would you like to say?
So I just wanted to spin for a second. So I truly, and being someone who is Southern born, I'm pretty confident and knowledgeable, and I know that there are so many people of color, a lot in the South. I won't say everywhere. He was quiet until I got on here. So Cameron, Daddy's talking. But so many people, they were not going to vote for her anyway. It didn't matter. She was not going to get the vote simply because of her anatomy, simply because she was a woman. And so that whole ignorance of misogyny thing is still out there, like no matter what. And a greater majority of them are in churches every single Sunday. It's interesting how nowadays, even though I am a Christian, I believe in kingdom principles. And that's the thing that most people are missing when they're Christian. They don't know kingdom. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But to be Christian and not know anything of Christ-like. And so, as much as Christ had men around him, he had women around him. And so people are still, and in the Black community, and then you'll hear someone who is very against white people. I hear a Black person who's very against white people in general, but then do misogynistic, patriarchal things that actually way back when white people brought to our culture, to a degree. Don't get me wrong, misogyny has been all over the planet, but so there's so many things. So like patriarchy, that whole this dutiful wife that stays at home in a Donna Reed dress and she just cooks every day and takes care of the kids, like that doesn't exist for everyone. But that's the pattern that we try to follow and make all these types of mistakes. So I don't think that those people voted for Trump. I think they skipped voting for the president altogether. I think there was some because you can still fill out the rest of the ballot, but they didn't like Trump because they knew he was crazy and didn't want him in the office. Weren't going to vote for him, but wasn't going to vote for her, which was one of those mistakes where we lose a vote. Basically, we lost presidential votes because of misogyny, and I do think that we also missed some opportunities. Just not having enough days. Like people keep saying, "Oh, she only had 107 days." But to be honest with you, the way the campaign run, with the aid of social media and things like that, I don't know that that's totally it. Like not having enough time to run the campaign. Maybe hit some other states and cities, like they were talking about it last night. But I'm not really sure that the people had a made up mind already, just simply based off of her anatomy. Simply based off the fact that she was a woman of color. They already had made up minds. I don't think time had anything to do with it. They had made up minds already, and it's sad. When it comes down to the for those of us who are a part of the alphabet crew, the LGBTQIA plus community. I saw some things online today, like people, a lot of us, that's our first thought, like who I am in my orientation, not who I chose to be, who I am. But that's part of our concern is how is that going to affect us as a community here? And people were like, still wanted to like argue this whole thing about whether or not it's a sin and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, to be honest with you, I cursed. And so my thing is that we are no longer, most of us, I'm not interested in sitting down to the table with you and having a discussion about it. I don't care what your beliefs are when it comes to LGBT people. I really don't care. We don't have time to have conversations with you. I'm not going back to try to school you on how you're wrong. I'm not sitting down with you with the Bible and going over all the clobber passages that you all try to use. It's time out for that. Because if you want it, you'll get it on your own time. Now, if you want to come to me and actually have a real conversation about it, we can do that. But I'm not sitting down with people and having these back and forths. I'm trying to live. I'm simply trying to exist. So many people are trying to exist in the skin that they're in. And we don't have time to try for you to, I'm still working on it. Well, you're going to work on it on your own, boo-boo, because I'm not taking that time out for you anymore. So now I'm talking about my livelihood, my absolute existence. Those things are concerning for those of us in this community. So, yeah.
Go ahead. It's interesting that people are quick to talk about homosexuality being a sin, and then because of that, trying to come against same-sex rights and things like that, or abortion. If you think abortion is a sin, and trying to come against that in the voting booth. If you think abortion is a sin, okay, don't have one. If you think being gay is a sin, okay. I'm not trying to force you to marry a man if you're a man, or force you to marry a woman. If you think being trans is a sin, okay. I'm not asking you to have a sex change. Right? And so we act like the very nature of our existence is imposing something on somebody else. How many Christians are in the voting booth trying to make it against the law to not tithe? You think not tithing is a sin, so why ain't you trying to force everybody to tithe? Right? Because we're picky on what we think should be a law and a rule for somebody else. If you believe it, that is fine. I'm not trying. That's one of the reasons I get tired of gay people trying to go up and try to force. I'm going to sue this church because he didn't let me use their sanctuary to have my same-sex marriage. Girl, please. Boy, bye. We're not trying to force nobody to accept and affirm us. I don't care. If you don't want me to have no same-sex marriage, I'm not going to come in there and ask. I don't care. Because number one, I don't want my honorarium going to support this church anyway. I don't want you baking my wedding cake, boo. I don't know what you're going to put in that thing. So why am I going to sue you for the wedding cake and you didn't put all kind of stuff in this thing? Right? No, thank you. I'm not trying to force anybody to, but what I am trying to say is, but what you won't do is come against my right to exist and to live and to thrive. Right? So you don't have to accept homosexuality or abortion or whatever the case is. But that's the problem with Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism says my version of Christianity should be the law of the land. Not only Christianity as opposed to Islam, as opposed to Hinduism, as opposed to atheism, as opposed to a secular society, Christianity. And, Christians love, oh yeah, I love that. Let's do it. And I'm like, I had to tell somebody one time, careful now, because which version of Christianity are you talking about? I said the version where you still couldn't vote because it was a woman. I said the version where you can't work out of the home. And then they thought about it and said, oh, I didn't think about that. There is no one monolithic Christianity. There's a whole lot of Christianities. And I can't guarantee the one that I subscribe to will be the one in power. Neither do I want to even be in power because I'm not trying to control anybody else's life. My beliefs become a law, a guide unto me, not anybody else. And that's the problem with Christian nationalism. And one of the reasons why Trump won is that we're trying to make the United States after our image and what we believe is supposed to be. And that is absolutely wrong. What do you think Jesus meant when he said, my kingdom is not of this world? I'm not trying to get you all to create the United States as the church of Jesus Christ. Let people be people. I'm not trying to force anybody to live according to whatever it is that we believe and teach. Those are the standards that we are supposed to live by. And if Christians just got that and stopped feeling like they were morally obligated to vote Republican, They made that up, y'all, in order to manipulate you, in order to use your faith, because you have sincere faith. And so they made that up in order to manipulate you into using your faith to manipulate your vote. And y'all, it's just not right. It's just not right. And to be honest with you, I don't want to be in the party that's just full of Christians, because Christians can be crazy. Give me some diversity. I don't want to be in a room full of black people. I don't want to just be all around white people. I need some diversity in my life. I don't want to be the spiritual leader of an all anything church. You know, I have a black church. I have a Christian church. I have just a church of people, right, who just trying to be right, right? I need some diversity. I need people of other perspectives. I need women. I don't want a gay church. People are like, you pastor a gay church. No, I don't. I pastor an affirming church. We have gay people and we have straight people. And when I say we have, I'm not just talking about in the pews, because we love to let people come into the pews and take their offerings, but we don't actually have them reflected in leadership. I have gay people and straight people in leadership. I have men and women in leadership. I have black and white in leadership. I have people of different, all kind of, whatever the case is, of all the different diversities, at least the number of diversities that we can have in a church our size, right? And they're reflected in the very life of the church. And that's the kind of church I want. That's the kind of world I want. Even outside of faith, I want to have neighbors. I want to have people in my life who aren't Christian. I can learn from them. They can learn from me, right? Do I believe that what I'm bearing witness to is true? Yes, I believe that what I bear witness to as Jesus being the Christ is fundamentally true. That doesn't mean that they're not people who desire to do right. In fact, there are people who are not Christian who exhibit Christian character a lot better than a lot of Christians I know. And they'd be a lot more fun to hang around than a lot of Christians I know. There are non-Christians, like atheists, who are responding to this election a lot better than some of the Christians I know, because they're not just throwing around churchy sayings. Well, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. You know what? I have. Can we have some real talk? I have. Can I help you with something? I don't want to preach. The man who said that, David, he literally begged bread. In Matthew, I think it's Matthew 12, Jesus was criticized for healing a man on the Sabbath. And one of the ways he justified what he did, because they weren't supposed to do work on the Sabbath, he said, don't you remember when David was fleeing for his life from Saul, and he actually went into the temple and ate from the table of showbread because they were hungry? When you look at the text, when David was fleeing for his life, they were hungry. They were starving, him and his men. And they went to the temple, and the priest said, all we have is this food that's dedicated to the Lord. It's the bread that's on the holy table, the table of showbread. And David said, well, can we have that? And they took the bread from the holy sacred table and ate it. And guess what? They hadn't sinned. And that was the point Jesus made. Wow, what was the point? Circumstances matter, baby. It's not just what does the text say. What are the circumstances? Did they do it because they were rebellious, or did they do it because they were starving? God cares more about your starving than he does about the table of showbread. And that was a sacred, holy table. That ought to tell you something about what God thinks about you and about how much God loves you. And so many Christians are exalting the text above the well-being of people. And God says, I will give the text away for the people any day. The whole reason the text exists is for the good of the people. And so if there's a circumstance where those two things are in conflict, the well-being of the people should always win. I just gave it to you in Romeo Parks' weekly language. Let me give it to you in biblical language so you know I'm not making this up. In the same context, Matthew 12, Jesus said, if you would have known what this meant, I desire mercy and not religiosity, not sacrifice, right? He said, you would not have condemned the guiltless. He said, these are not people who need to be forgiven because of the circumstances. They're actually guiltless. Well, they broke the letter of the law. Yes, they did. But they did not sin because circumstances matter. And people's well-being is always more important. Love always trumps the letter. And so while you all are taking the letter of the law as you interpret it now, it ain't even right half the time, but you're taking the letter of the law as you interpret it into the voting booth and putting an absolutely horrible, immoral, unethical, sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot into office based on how you have been indoctrinated by your church to vote Republican under all circumstances. But you don't know the letter trumps, that you don't know the love trumps the letter? That you don't know that mercy trumps religiosity? Come on. What's wrong with the church? Had Christians not supported Donald Trump, he would not be in office. He would not be returning to office. There's something sick and twisted about that. And it breaks my heart because I believe in the goodness of the church. I believe in the potential of the church when we just get over ourselves. When we just get over ourselves and get this thing right. We are to be agents of transformation. What did he say with the weightier matters? I told you, Matthew 23:23. Justice, compassion or mercy, faithfulness. Those matter more than your religiosity. When are you going to take those values into the voting booth? Because there's nothing about Donald Trump that's for justice. There's nothing about Donald Trump that's for compassion or mercy. And I might excuse it the first time around because we just weren't sure. But now you know what type of man he is. And there literally is no excuse. So we have to do better. My lovely saints, we have to do better. I want to end just by sharing one more thought. Anybody else is out there that wants to come on? I put the link in the chat, at least the chat that was on my shared feed. Feel free to do that, but do it quickly because I'm going to be hopping off in a moment. But I wanted to just share a thought, and that is, what can we learn from this? First of all, I started out by saying that we have to stop with the religious terms. God is in control. No, he's not. He gave up control the moment he gave us free will. So can we just get rid of that? It doesn't still mean that God's not God. God doesn't have to be the great marionette on high to still know he's God. He's still God and he's still sovereign, but he is not a tyrant. He is not in control. Okay? That's first of all. Then I said earlier, this thought about, well, the Lord's plan and, there's a hedge of protection all around us. No, let's get rid of all of those little religious sayings. What we can learn from this, though, is that our actions or inactions have consequences. That is a lesson that we can learn. And so what I want to really encourage you all to do as we hop off and get on about our evening, I really want to encourage us to take responsibility for the unfolding of events. That as life unfolds, whether it's political, whether it's on your job, whether it's in your marriage, whether it's in your family structure, whatever it is, as life unfolds, take responsibility. Don't just put it on God. Take responsibility. What do I need to do? What do I need to pray about? What do I need to study? What do I need more information on? So I need to actually commit myself to doing the research. What do I need to actually have conversations with other people about? People who may disagree with me because I may have some blind spots, right? I need to take responsibility for life as it unfolds and not just put it all on God. Yes, I trust God. But guess what? God's working through us. We are the agents of God. And so if we expect it to happen, we have to be that agency. We have to be the hands of God. We have to be the feet of God. We're the body of Christ because he is not here right now. And so if the change is going to come, it's going to come through us, not from heaven, through us. And so what we can learn is to not be apathetic. What we can learn is to not disengage. All of this stuff matters. It has real consequences for people that we claim to love, for ourselves in ways that we may not even realize right now. And we do have an opportunity to still make a difference. So as much as you may be hurting, as much as you may be frustrated, as much as you may be despondent, as much as you may be afraid, I want to encourage you with this. We're still here. And as long as we're still here, hallelujah. I didn't want to go to church, but as long as we're still here, we can still make a difference. We are still here. And as long as we're still here, we can still make a difference. So take your time to grieve. Take your time to feel what you feel. It's real and it's okay. And Overseer Romel Parks Weekly is telling you, with the authority that he has in the church, that it's okay, right? So don't let some religious person tell you that you just trust God. No, honey, feel what you feel. But when you're done feeling it, let there be a springboard for action. Michelle Obama preached a word that I don't think she knew she preached. She said, do something. If we can learn anything from this election, it is that we are responsible all the more going forward for doing something. Well, Overseer, I did something last time. Good. And I'm not saying it was wasted. God never promised that every time you do something, what you're expecting on the other side is going to happen. That's not how this works. But guess what? We got to keep on doing. We got to keep our hand to the plow, as the old saints would say. We can't look back. We got to keep pressing forward. Because even if we don't get to see the change in our generation to the extent that we desire to see it, Dr. King didn't see the change to the extent that he desired to see it. And despite what a lot of the progressives might say, we ain't came nowhere since 1965. Yes, we have. Oh, we got a ways to go, as this election cycle proved. But we have come a ways, and we thank God for progress. But progress does not mean the work is over, right? But it's still progress. So even though he wasn't allowed to see this level of change, what he still sowed brought change, and it's affecting all our lives. So even if you're not alive to see the result of what you do, it can still be a tree planted that brings forth fruit for somebody. It may bring forth fruit for you. We don't know. But even if it has to bring forth fruit for your children, or bring forth fruit for your grandchildren, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't surrender this country to Christian nationalists. Don't surrender it to white nationalists. Don't surrender it to wealthy people who don't care about the poor. Right? Don't surrender. A war is not one battle. It's a series of battles. It's a series of conflicts. Just because you lose one battle, it does not mean the war is over. We are still here, and we will still fight. With God as our help, because we're not helping God, he's helping us, right? With God as our help, but we got to give him something to work with. That means we got to be doing something. He can't put super on nothing. He has to put his super on our natural. So we have to still offer him something to work with. So with God as our help, stay in the fight. keep protesting, keep holding your friends accountable. When they say something sexist about Kamala Harris or any other woman, don't just laugh it off, hold them accountable, right? We got to stop letting things slide. Well, that's just old Uncle Jerry. No, ruin Thanksgiving and cuss Uncle Jerry out, right? Stop letting stuff slide. We have to hold people accountable if we want to see change. I know, again, I keep saying I don't want to go to church. Let us not be weary in well-doing. Take the time you need for your well-being, for your mental health. If you need to disconnect for a few days, for a week, do it. Do what you got to do. But baby, come back ready to fight. Come back advocating. Come back making YouTube videos. Come back going live on Facebook. Come back making statuses. Doing whatever you have. Some people try to delegitimize social. They call them social media warriors. Baby, if that's where you're going to fight, then fight there. Everybody's not going to be in the street. Everybody's not going to be in the halls of Congress. Wherever you fight, fight. What you contribute has value. It matters. Even if you don't see the fruit of it now, it matters. So be encouraged, y'all. It's not over. Like I said, we are still here. And let me say, I saw my daddy on here. Dad, when I said cuss Uncle Jerry out, I was just playing. The bishop was on, y'all.
He absolutely was not playing. No. So let us not lie.
Right? You know,
we don't want to be new versions of Trump. Let's not lie.
Let's not lie. Amen.
Listen, I do want to share before you actually close us out. I want to encourage people, for as much as we say, for a lot of us that I have yet that to see anybody in my thread that I had to unfriend. But if you are disassociating yourself and distancing yourself from these people, then be sure on the opposite of that you are gravitating even more so to the safe circles, to the individuals who are like-minded. It doesn't mean that you 100% agree with everything those individuals say either, but that we are supportive of each other. I think that's one of the things that we can't afford to lose during this time, is actually being supportive of each other. So whether that's a group of people in your church, or whether that's some people at work, I've always known on any job that I've gone on, whether they said it or not, and maybe I'm just, it's just a prophetic mind or discernment, but I've always known who was Republican, who was Democrat. You can just kind of tell by the way that they operate, even though they smile in your face every day. But I'm very careful who I call. Ramel thinks I have too many friends that I call friends, but I'm
very discriminating when I say friend.
I guess that so a lot of times friend is an associate that you've known for years. Like social media, I have friends I've known for years, people that I've known for years, but they never met them in person. And so you're like, hey, I don't say, hey, associate, you say, hey, friend. So, but I say that to gravitate towards the positive. You've got to question your circles and question the people that you're around, question your church. For a lot of women, I really don't understand how y'all sit in these churches that think that you are third-class citizens. You're not enough to minister, you're not enough to walk across the pulpit, and there were male pastors who stood up in pulpits for weeks and told people that God did not call for a woman to be president. I don't know how y'all swallowed that pill and sat there, and you're going to keep sitting there in the pews. It told you that, a woman is not supposed to be president and then use the terminology of the man is the head of the household. So again, somebody else who wants to be tricky and conniving with scripture. Yeah, no. So I just want us to pick positive, safe spaces. Don't try to force yourself into a space where they don't want you. I don't understand that part.
Yes.
Why want to go to or be in a space or participate or support a business or an organization that doesn't automatically support you? And so I just, gravitate towards the safe space where, however you fall into the spectrum of a person and human being in this nation, wherever you are, whether it's the LGBT thing, it's a woman thing, it's a person of color, you're a person with disabilities, you're a senior person, all of those things, you need to be in spaces that actually support and lift you up and encourage you. Not something that's going to hold you back or hold you down. So think about all of the things that are around you. Some of you are on jobs that you need to leave. I can't afford to leave my job now. I don't know. Maybe you need to. So, a lot to think about.
And I think about, don't try so hard to get a place at a table that wasn't made for you. One thing I believe is in creating my own table. I'm not trying to force myself on somebody else's table if that table was not made for me. If there's not space for me, let me tell you what you can do with your table, right? Because I can't not be me in order to accommodate your bigotry, in order to accommodate your low consciousness, right? And that's one thing. Let me say this. And last call for anybody who wants to come on, because we finna get off, we finna hop off here. One thing that she had a few things I like, but one thing that Vice President Harris said during the campaign that I thought was so powerful. She said, and that's gone from me that fast, Lord today. Oh man, Lord today. What did she say? Oh, yes, what it was. She said, thank you, God, because I sure forgot. She said about this next generation, particularly Generation Z, Gen Z. She said, I'm going to tell you what I like about Gen Z. She said, Gen Z is not patient for change. And I'm like, VP, you are right about it. Because I'm at the tail end of Gen X. I'm like at the border of Gen X and millennials, but I'm in Gen X. And the truth is, Gen X, we still tolerate it. We pushed the envelope, but we still tolerated some of what came before us. But then the millennials came along, and we got mad at the millennials because we said they were entitled. Y'all remember how we called millennials entitled? But guess what? That's because we raised them to actually demand more than what we tolerated and accepted. And maybe that gave way to some sense of entitlement. But you know what? I'd rather have that than apathy. And now that we have the next generation, Gen Z, they just ain't having it. They don't care. And you know what? As a Gen Xer, I applaud you. I salute you. And I say that we can learn from you about being less tolerant of all the stuff we talked about tonight, bigotry and just everything, right? Economic injustice, all the things that you all are much more vocal about. Thank you. She called you all leaders. I hope y'all were paying attention to this election cycle. She called you all leaders. And I just want to say that I agree. I agree. So don't let older people delegitimize your contribution. You get out there and you lead. Because there are people who really want change, and some of them are just tired because they've been fighting this fight for 30, 40 years. They tired. And so there needs to be new generations of people coming up who have that energy and have that drive and have a new vision and expectations for change. So don't let anybody delegitimize what you offer. We all can bring what we bring. And what I just say is just bring something. Don't just sit back and complain. Bring, like Michelle Obama said, do something. And with that, I say thank you all for joining. I really, really, really hope that this was helpful in some way to just kind of give you some breathing room. I really wanted to come on and just affirm that what you're feeling, because I was seeing a lot of like religious talk that was like, God is in control, delegitimizing your feelings and saying just trust God. No, I'm hurting. And I have a reason to be hurting because I don't know what the future holds for my family. Well, it's a hedge of protection around you. Tell that to all the people who were lynched, right? I don't know if my marriage is going to be legal in 3 years. I don't know, right? I don't know what the future is going to look like. But what I do know is as long as I'm here, I can still fight. So take your breath, take your rest, take your mental health day, and let's get back to it. All right. I love you all so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for your support. If you do want to find a way to continue to support the work that I'm doing, I do have a YouTube page, and it's kind of like brand new. I don't have a few videos on it, but I'm really trying to hold the church to a greater level of thinking when it comes to issues like this and other things too. So feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's at YouTube. I'm going to put the ticker up if I can find the thing, but that's at youtube.com /the @ and then R Parks Weekly. So it's like my initials, R Parks Weekly. YouTube, R Parks Weekly. And I encourage you all to just be a part of the change. We try to make things happen, because come 2028, we want to see a different result. I want to end with one brief word of prayer. And then we're going to end up. Come on back, Damien. What were you going to say? I saw you. Come on in. Come on in the room. I don't know what tomorrow is. Oh, yes. I had that in my notes and forgot it. Yes. Tomorrow, I'll be online. We'll be doing another conversation with Will Horn, Pastor Will Horn, who is Reverend Dr. Will Horn. Reverend Will Horn. I didn't give him 27 titles, y'all. With Reverend Will Horn tomorrow on Facebook Live. So please check that out. I'm not sure what time, but many of you all are aware of Will Horn. Just type it into the search, and I'll share it on my page as well. But certainly tune in, because it's going to be some good conversation to be had. And so we need to have some important conversations right now, because this is a good opportunity. Sometimes we're not primed for change until we're hurting. And so this is a good opportunity to tap into these raw feelings and to really produce some positive change. Okay. So I'll be on tomorrow with Reverend Will Horn. Look forward to seeing you on Facebook. Listen, here's a prayer request. Take this to your prayer closet. Please pray that Donald Trump, the next president of the United States, survives the whole 4 years of his term. Because let me tell you something. J.D. Vance would be even worse. Okay. I just want to leave you with that. Father, in the name of Jesus, I speak peace. I release peace to everybody watching this broadcast. That even in the midst of the turmoil that we may be experiencing emotionally, that there will come a settling to it. That we will find our equilibrium. We will find our center. We will be all right. And I thank you that through this process of grieving and of frustration and fear and whatever else we may be feeling at this time, that through this process, you're going to give us ideas. You're going to give us insight. You're going to give us motivation. You're going to give us new pathways forward. A good work to do, to occupy us, so that we can produce the positive fruit that we so long to see. We don't have to hold the presidency to still produce positive fruit. And so for the fruit that is to come, we say thank you. What the enemy meant for bad, oh, we're about to see it turn good, because we are going to do our part. And for that, we say thanks. For putting your super on our natural efforts, we say thanks. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Good night, y'all. Love you all so